first of all, thank you very much for the introduction, because I've actually thought about, how can I introduce this topic? Because in a way, I would have said, I have good and bad news for you, because of course this is Pharmapack, and I think we've already had a look at a lot of new technologies and technology-driven presentations and workshops and so on, and I'm actually coming here with something which is a little bit different. Monty Python would have said now for something completely different, but apparently from what you've said, I think I have a very good base to actually talk a little bit about change as a prerequisite to enhancing innovation capabilities for organizations. And when I say that, I don't only mean the pharma company, as you've heard from the introduction. I'm part of Novartis, or I work for Novartis. When I talk about organizations, it's actually, I mean our whole industry. So I see us as as one mix of people who try to innovate together and work for patients. So it's not only the pharma perspective, it's actually the whole presentation actually deals with what we can do and what changes are needed from us, all of us, in order to be able to tackle all the challenges in the future. And another good news is I'll start with a picture and I end with a picture. So let's have a look at the first one. It's actually two dinosaurs. In Basel, where I'm from, we only have one dinosaur, but here's actually two dinosaurs. And the question is, can we wait a little more before we actually change? And you see the snow is already sort of falling onto their heads, and said, I heard they're downsizing, right? So the question is, how long can we wait before we change? I mean, you've just pointed out with all the new stuff coming and all the new challenges, I think we also need to change our mindset and the way we're working. So some initial thoughts. Actually, pharmaceutical packaging development is part of a highly regulated industry. So we all know that, when it comes to submissions, we've got the regulatory bodies, looking after us and saying, okay, you have to do it this and that way. And the question is, how do you actually regulate innovation in your own organization, and how do you innovate in a regulated environment? So it's sort of a little bit of a contradiction sometimes. Doesn't have to be, but that's definitely the case, because the more regulation, when you think about creativity, of course, it can be challenging. And then the business models and the business is changing. We heard that before. Digitalization of products, industry trends like personalized medicine, so going away from the big blockbusters, going into more of smaller products, smaller batches, all these kind of things. And that should all bring us to the point where we ask ourselves, is change still an option? So don't we really have to think about not only the new products, but also the way we work? And from my point of view, I think if we want to have innovation in the future and actually be at the right pace for our patients, it actually needs an innovation culture that is crucial in the future in order to be successful for us, but also, of course, always for the patients. So just new products all the time will probably not be good enough. And we heard an example, especially in digital. People come up with wonderful things, put them on the market, but the value, that's the question. Okay, so let's have a look. First of all, business as usual. Even though you think about a cultural topic, you need some definitions, you need some ground tools in order to actually talk about the same thing. And one of the things is, a lot of people think that innovation is the same as creativity, but actually it's not. Innovation is putting something into effect, so really getting something out of it, something that, a physical output or process that really brings value to customers, patients, and delivers the profit. So at the end of the day, when I have a look at this, the best one, and I hope I don't press the wrong button, because I think it's the laser pointer. No, it doesn't work. Is it this one? Doesn't matter. The star in the middle. So new product, happy customer, or a healthy patient, and profit. If you combine all that and you hit the middle, that's where you want to be, and that's where you really, where you have innovation. Creativity is, let's say, the groundwork. So it's a way of looking at problems, also using certain technology or techniques like brainstorming or lateral thinking, things like that. So there's a difference between innovation and creativity, but they don't go without another, of course. Next thing. When you think about innovation and innovation categories, and I think that's very important, and that's one of the first things that you can do when you have an organization, and even if it's a small one. I had talked to somebody last night, and from a startup, just 20, 30 people, And he said they have like 4 or 5 products. And they said, we have 1 or 2 things, and that's our core. This is where we work on. And I can tell you, it's a very innovative company, but for them, that's the core. That's the core of their business. And then they have 2 or 3 other things, which they work on, but they say they have other business models for it. And just by talking to him, when you have a look at this, it is actually what he's done right there is he thought about, okay, where do we have to play? Because that's what helps if you have a look at the categories. And how do we treat this innovation in the different categories, and what does it mean from us? And now coming back to the slide, if you have core, incremental, adjacent, and transformational, it's actually from the book, The Corporate Startup, apart from the fact that it's only called core in the corporate startup. Incremental is from, so a lot of people just use the word, but when you categorize that, you see that there's a possible definition there, and it says possible definitions. Because this is actually the work of the people in TRD at Novartis, Technical Research and Development, because you have to discuss this with your people, right? What is actually core? Don't make the decision yourself because you're an innovation manager or a new technologies head. You know, make sure that the understanding of everybody involved is the same. So this is actually an outtake of what the people in TRD, the innovators, and a lot of people thought from a definition point of view. So core for us is optimizing an existing process or technology. Adjacent is expanding internally established processes or implementing novel externally available processes. And transformational is enabling breakthrough solutions. And then once you've got this, you've got your categories, but then your mix counts. And that can be different. In a large organization, like for example Novartis or other pharma companies or other suppliers, it can be the case that even different line functions have different sort of mixes. So you have to make the decision what is good and what is bad. But it really helps you to realize where you can play, where you should play, and also where you shouldn't play. And The Corporate Startup is an interesting book. At Novartis, all of TRD associates got that book, and we use it as a playbook. It doesn't have to be this one, but at least you've got something where people get the understanding. And it helps to build what I'll jump in next, which is what I call an innovation culture. And if you want to embark on this innovation culture or foster one, and we'll all need one, or I flip back to the dinosaurs in the beginning if you don't believe me. The role of change for successful innovation is very important. And one of the first things that you can keep in mind is, and there's a study out there, actually historically, and that's for all change programs, 70% of them fail. 70%. I mean, this is from 2008, so it's pretty old, but it's probably still true. So only 30% are actually successful. So when we realize we need to change, we have to also realize how do we actually change. If we just do it, you know, in a change program, it might not really work. Many programs actually start with hard factors and metrics and processes, but do not include softer, and I don't like the word softer skills because they're not soft. They are very important, but so we all know what we're talking about. I included the softer skills. They need to be part of it, and usually they're not. Then what we also find is one size fits all. So a company says, we have to do innovation, and then there's this innovation claim out there, and everybody has to do it. Or in the old days, years ago, a company said, we dedicate 5% or 10% of all our employees, and they can be innovators. Okay, worked in the beginning, but how sustainable is that one? So, and there's a thought, like when we do new things, we test them all the time, right? So when we have a new technology and we work on it, we test it. Why don't we test change? It's crazy, right? But that's actually what we can do. We can use little islands and we can test what we want to change. But overall, and I'll jump into it on the next slide, I think a holistic view is actually needed. So it's not partially here or all over. A holistic view is actually needed in order to get organizational innovation capabilities going. So, innovation demands the right culture. I think we can also relate to that one. So it needs a high engagement demand on the employees. It's always good if you don't have too many boundaries, so to say, that you have a porous organizational thing to find best solutions, high creativity, multidisciplinary teams, co-creative thinking. I'll come to that later again. What does that mean? Then also speedy, flexible innovation process. The so-called fuzzy-ended innovation models where things start, and they don't have to be 100% in the beginning, and then you take it through the development. So it doesn't mean that you can just do it, or everybody can just do 10% in the way they like it, but there needs to be a process behind it. But then still less structured focus, especially in the beginning. Use open innovation and outsourcing. So outsourcing, what can I do and what should I actually do? What can others do for us or can do with others together? Multiple life cycle thinking and multi-general design. Patients and users always in the middle. And the naysayers. Instead of innovation adoption issues need to be addressed, you could say you always have the naysayers. So you need to address that as well. And now, 6 pillars, which the team that I worked with found, let's say, very important to enable innovation in an organization. Touched upon these before. Technical, in brackets, innovation skills. So that's the merger of not only technical skills, but also the soft skills. A combination, actually, of them to get team confidence, sense of empowerment, and team psychology. Ongoing individual and team support. It's really funny, when you have a football team, you have a coach, and he's there all the time to help them, right? But when we put a project team together, what do? We have them report him, of course, but why don't we help them? Why don't we have an ongoing support for them? Then team co-invention, co-creation. And this is twofold. Of course, we should have teams combined together, but when I talk about teams, and I'll touch upon this on one of the later slides actually, or the next one, it also means that, for example, we as a pharma company in the future can probably not only innovate ourselves or give everything outside. I think we have to work and innovate together. So the co-creation with what we today sometimes as pharma companies call suppliers should be more partners and co-create. Instead of just, taking it about, we want exclusivity and things like that. This will not work. If you want to be fast and if you want to actually make transformational innovation, I think we have to change our way of working. Personalization, very difficult, especially in big companies and big organizations. Today, we put teams together. I mean, line function so-and-so, send so-and-so, and we never have a look at the team composition. Never. It's hard, I know, but if you have 10 innovators and no leader, what will the innovation be? That it doesn't work probably at the end of the day. So it's important, and it's not meant in a negative way, but it's really because you want an outcome at the end of the day, then let's put the right people together with different lenses so they can be a successful team. The pincer, wonderful word. Simultaneously top-down and ground facilitation. So it's driven bottom-up and only fostered and coached top-down. It's very important. If you just innovate for your boss, thank you very much. I don't want to see the product. Empowerment in leadership. This is really close to my heart because I think we have to change here dramatically. The old manager, who sits there and tells everybody what to do, I think we all can agree that doesn't work anymore. At Novartis, it's called servant leadership sometimes, though a lot of people have probably heard the word unbossed. I like servant leadership more because the unbossed concept sometimes leads to confusion because people might think there's no boss anymore. But it's actually the idea of more of a coach and a mentor rather than actually being the manager, the old styles in the 70s where he used to sit there with a cigar, a man usually. Okay, now this is all of these thoughts put into what we all like into one overview. And so you find all the things that I've just touched upon, the innovation skills, the ongoing individual and team support. So it's not only about the team that you want to coach, it's also the individuals. Team co-innovation, have teams working together. Personalization, I know it's hard, but at least make an assessment who you have on your team, what sort of personalities are there, and then maybe you can make the decision to onboard somebody who sort of complements it. The pincer, really important, especially when you're a manager. Empowerment, I mean, don't tell people what to do, tell them what the goal is, or let them know what the goal is, or you think what the goal is, and let them work it out the way they think it's the best. And then something I touched upon, which is now in the middle, because when we started discussing this, the co-creation is for the inside perspective for an organization. And the next step is actually taking this ring outside, and that's what I talked about earlier, like pharma company working together with others in a partnership model and be co-creative. So you can use the same model, almost the same model, and actually expand the inner ring to the outside to get organizational innovation capabilities going. Unfortunately, I have to tell you, it won't work if you don't change. So there's no organizational change if we don't change. So individually change. So, and we have to practice that. I fail every day because I come from a different background. I'm already 50 years old. How do you think I was brought up? But you have to change, right? If we don't work on ourselves, the whole organization cannot change. And we need to practice. That's another thing. So, reference selected literature, you can have a look at these. The one with the 70% of failure first, then our playbook at TRD, from TRD Innovation, and a couple of other references I used throughout the presentation. And then a big thank you to Richard Walker and Alex Booth from Full Spectrum Innovation, who I've been discussing all of these thoughts together with putting it into what we at Novartis do at the moment. Then Georgina Andrews from Bath Business School, Bath Spa University, and Anna Walker as well. So that's basically the team that has been working on little things like that. And many thanks to Justin Wright, our head of TRD Innovation, who does a lot for us, and the guy who works with him is Graham Jones. And with that, thank you, and I would be honored to have a couple of questions from you.
Any questions? Marc, I have one, because I know the difficulty to put that in place, yes. Such an organization. So, in Novartis, how long was the journey to arrive to this point of maturity, I should say?
We are on a journey. So it's basic. I mean, that's exactly what you get from everybody from us at the moment. This is a journey, and it's hard. And I mean, especially at Novartis, a big pharma company, with a legacy of having a different culture in the past. So we're nowhere near the end, so to say. So it's actually regarded as a journey, and I'm actually happy because I'm allowed to do these things, right? Because I think a couple of years ago that would have been virtually impossible to talk about these things. I mean, we try in my team and around us. We try a lot of these things. We fail sometimes, but we regard it as a journey. We're not there. This might be completely wrong, like the overview in the end, but we are willing to try it. And that's the way forward, I think, because we need to change. I mean, it's all triggered by how do we deliver medicine to patients in the future? And digital doesn't wait. I mean, sorry. More questions? Okay. I'll come back and tell you where we are on the journey one day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.